Last chance. God is preparing a miracle for your soulmate. My beloved child, listen carefully. Don't skip this message. Stay till the end, because this story begins at a moment when hope seems almost impossible to find. There comes a season in many lives when everything feels delayed, every prayer seems unanswered, and every dream appears to be slipping further away. It is in those moments that people begin asking difficult questions. Has God forgotten me? Is this chapter over? Will anything ever change? This is not a promise about your future, but a story about how faith, perseverance, and God's grace can transform even the most uncertain seasons. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not what happens around us but what God quietly begins within us. Your special person has been carrying a weight that very few people truly understand. Outwardly, they smile, fulfill their responsibilities, and continue moving through each day as though everything is fine. Yet when the world grows quiet and no one is watching, they find themselves wrestling with questions they cannot easily answer. They remember moments that shaped them, words they wish they had spoken, opportunities they let pass because fear seemed stronger than courage. The harder they try to silence those memories, the louder they become. Instead of finding peace by avoiding them, they discover that healing begins only when they are willing to face them honestly before God. Listen carefully, because something important begins to happen during one ordinary evening. After another long day, they finally stop trying to control every outcome. They bow their head and pray with complete honesty. There are no rehearsed words, no attempts to sound impressive. They simply ask God for wisdom, for peace, and for the strength to become the person He is calling them to be. In that quiet prayer, nothing around them changes immediately. The room remains the same. The circumstances remain the same. Yet something inside their heart begins to shift. That quiet surrender becomes the first step toward a miracle they never expected. Days pass, and subtle changes begin appearing in their life. They notice how bitterness no longer feels comfortable. They become quicker to forgive and slower to judge. The anger they carried for so long gradually loses its power. Instead of dwelling on every disappointment, they begin thanking God for the lessons hidden within those difficult seasons. They realize that every setback has taught them compassion, every delay has strengthened their patience, and every unanswered prayer has invited them to trust more deeply. What once felt like punishment now begins to look like preparation. Stay till the end, because this changes everything. Your special person starts recognizing that God's greatest work often happens in places no one else can see. Just as a seed grows beneath the soil long before it appears above the ground, faith grows quietly within the heart before its fruit becomes visible. Every prayer whispered in faith, every act of kindness offered without recognition, and every decision to choose hope over despair becomes part of the beautiful work God is accomplishing within them. They begin understanding that miracles are not always dramatic events. Sometimes a miracle is a hardened heart becoming gentle again. Sometimes a miracle is finding peace after years of anxiety. Sometimes a miracle is discovering the courage to forgive when resentment once seemed impossible to release. One morning, as the first light of dawn fills the sky, they are reminded that every sunrise arrives exactly when God allows it. No amount of worry can make it come sooner, and no darkness can stop it from appearing at the appointed time. That simple truth settles deeply within their spirit. They understand that they have spent too much of their life trying to rush God's timing instead of trusting His wisdom. From that moment forward, they decide to stop measuring their life by what has not yet happened and begin thanking God for what He is already doing within them. Their perspective changes, and with it, their entire outlook on life. Listen carefully, my beloved child. There comes a conversation that unexpectedly confirms what God has been teaching them. A trusted friend reminds them that faith is not about knowing every detail of tomorrow. Faith is choosing obedience today, even when tomorrow remains hidden. Those words stay with them. They begin approaching each day differently. Instead of chasing certainty, they choose faithfulness. Instead of demanding immediate answers, they choose patience. Instead of allowing fear to direct every decision, they choose courage rooted in God's promises. Quietly, without even noticing it at first, they become someone who reflects peace instead of panic. As the weeks pass, family and friends notice the difference. They speak with greater gentleness. They listen more carefully. They become generous with encouragement and slow to criticize. The person who once carried constant worry now carries quiet confidence. Not because every problem has disappeared, but because they have discovered that God's presence is greater than their circumstances. They realize that real victory is not found in controlling life but in trusting the one who lovingly guides it. That discovery becomes the greatest miracle they have experienced. Don't skip this part, because the story is approaching its most beautiful moment. Looking back, your special person finally understands why certain doors remained closed and why certain seasons lasted longer than they expected. If everything had happened according to their own plans, they would have missed the deeper work God was accomplishing within them. They see now that every challenge refined their character, every disappointment strengthened their faith, and every season of waiting prepared them for greater wisdom. What once looked like delay has become evidence of God's patient care. My beloved child, perhaps this story is not only about your special person. Perhaps it is also an invitation for you. Whatever season you are walking through today, remember that God often works quietly before His work becomes visible. Keep praying with sincerity. Keep choosing kindness when it is difficult. Keep forgiving even when it feels costly. Keep trusting that every faithful step matters. No season of growth is ever wasted in God's hands. Whether the future holds restored relationships, unexpected opportunities, or entirely new beginnings, your hope does not rest in circumstances alone. It rests in the unchanging character of God. So as this chapter comes to a close, let your heart hold tightly to this truth: God is always more interested in transforming hearts than in rushing circumstances. When hearts are changed, lives are changed. When lives are changed, futures are changed. Continue walking faithfully, one day at a time. Continue believing that God's grace is sufficient for every challenge and His wisdom is greater than every uncertainty. The greatest miracle may not arrive the way you imagined, but if you keep your eyes on Him, you will discover that He has been working all along. And sometimes, that quiet, faithful work becomes the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of all. My beloved child, listen carefully, because the story has not reached its destination yet. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the greatest lessons often arrive just before a brand new chapter begins. Your special person has started noticing that God is changing more than their circumstances, He is changing their perspective. The worries that once consumed every quiet moment no longer have the same power over them. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they have begun asking, "Lord, what are you teaching me through this season?" That single question has opened their heart in ways they never imagined. They are beginning to understand that faith grows strongest when it continues trusting, even before every answer becomes clear. There are nights when they sit beneath the stars, reflecting on the road that brought them to this moment. They remember the disappointments that once felt unbearable. They remember prayers that seemed to echo into silence. They remember moments when giving up appeared easier than continuing to hope. Yet as they look back now, they realize that every difficult season carried hidden lessons. Every setback taught resilience. Every delay strengthened patience. Every tear reminded them of their need for God's comfort. Looking at the story as a whole, they can finally see that what felt like broken pieces were slowly being woven into something meaningful. Listen carefully, because something remarkable begins happening within their spirit. They no longer compare their journey to everyone else's. They stop measuring their life by what they believe they should have achieved by now. Instead, they become thankful for the progress God has already made within them. Gratitude slowly replaces frustration. Peace begins replacing anxiety. Hope quietly overcomes discouragement. The miracle they had been waiting to witness around them first begins unfolding inside them. This changes everything because they discover that a transformed heart sees the world differently. One quiet afternoon, they came across the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." Those words stayed with them long after they finished reading. They realized they had often spent more energy chasing certainty than pursuing a deeper relationship with God. From that day forward, they made a simple commitment. They would begin every morning with prayer before worrying about their plans. They would seek God's wisdom before making important decisions. They would trust His timing instead of forcing their own. That quiet commitment gradually became the foundation of a completely different life. Stay till the end, because the next lesson becomes one of the most powerful they have ever learned. They begin recognizing opportunities to encourage others who are walking through difficult seasons. Instead of keeping their testimony hidden, they gently share how God met them during moments of fear and uncertainty. They remind people that hope is never wasted, that healing often happens gradually, and that God's love remains constant even when circumstances change. To their surprise, their words begin bringing comfort to people they never expected to reach. The pain they once wished to erase becomes part of the story God uses to strengthen someone else's faith. My beloved child, never underestimate what God can do with a surrendered heart. A person who once felt defeated is now becoming a source of encouragement. Someone who once struggled to trust is now helping others hold on to hope. They have discovered that God rarely wastes a single season of our lives. Even our hardest chapters can become places where His grace shines most clearly. That truth fills them with quiet confidence because they know that every faithful step matters, even when no one else notices. As another season begins, they no longer live with the fear of missing God's plan. They have learned that His guidance often comes one step at a time. They do not need to know every detail of tomorrow to remain faithful today. They simply need to keep walking, keep praying, keep loving, and keep trusting. Every sunrise reminds them that God's mercy is new every morning. Every evening reminds them that His faithfulness carried them through another day. This rhythm of trust has become more precious than certainty itself. Don't skip this final moment, because another beautiful truth is waiting for you. Sometimes people ask God for a miracle while overlooking the miracle already taking place within them. A heart that chooses forgiveness instead of bitterness is a miracle. A life that chooses hope instead of despair is a miracle. A person who learns to trust God after seasons of disappointment is living evidence of His transforming grace. Your special person is beginning to understand that God's greatest work is not always changing circumstances overnight. It is preparing hearts to reflect His love, His peace, and His faithfulness in every season. And as this journey continues, they will discover that the miracle they were praying for was never only about reaching a destination. It was about becoming the person God lovingly intended them to be all along. My beloved child, listen carefully, because this chapter carries a lesson that many people spend their entire lives trying to understand. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because what happens next is not about a sudden change in circumstances but about a heart that has finally learned to trust God's direction above its own understanding. Your special person has come to realize that every road they once called a disappointment has quietly become part of their testimony. The prayers they thought were unanswered were not forgotten. The dreams they believed had disappeared were not abandoned. They were simply being shaped according to a wisdom far greater than they could see. Looking back now, they recognize that every delay protected them from rushing into seasons they were not yet prepared to carry. There are mornings now when they wake before the rest of the world, finding comfort in the stillness. They open the Scriptures, not searching for quick solutions, but seeking a deeper understanding of God's character. They have discovered that the greatest gift is not knowing exactly what tomorrow will bring. The greatest gift is knowing that God remains faithful through every tomorrow. As they meditate on His promises, the fear that once filled their heart begins to lose its influence. Their confidence no longer depends on favorable circumstances. It rests in the unchanging love and faithfulness of the One who has carried them through every previous season. Listen carefully, because something beautiful begins unfolding in the ordinary moments of their day. They notice opportunities to show kindness where they once would have remained silent. They choose patience where frustration once ruled. They offer encouragement to people who are carrying burdens no one else can see. These choices seem small, yet each one reflects the quiet work God has been doing within them. They understand now that true spiritual growth is often revealed not through dramatic experiences but through everyday faithfulness. Every gentle word, every act of mercy, every moment of forgiveness becomes evidence that their heart is being renewed. One afternoon, while reflecting on the story of Joseph, they were reminded that years of waiting did not mean God had forgotten His promise. Joseph experienced betrayal, injustice, loneliness, and uncertainty, yet every difficult chapter became part of God's greater purpose. That reflection brought comfort to their own heart. They realized that while they could not fully understand every detail of their journey, they could trust that God sees the entire picture from beginning to end. What appeared to be setbacks may one day be recognized as stepping stones leading toward a greater purpose than they had imagined. Stay till the end, because another truth is quietly changing the way they see the world. They have stopped asking God to remove every challenge from their path. Instead, they ask for the strength to remain faithful while walking through those challenges. They have learned that courage is often developed in difficult seasons, compassion grows through personal trials, and wisdom is usually gained through patient endurance. This new perspective has transformed the way they face each day. Even when uncertainty remains, hope continues to rise because they know that God has never abandoned them before, and He will not begin now. My beloved child, there will always be voices in the world encouraging impatience, fear, and discouragement. There will always be people who say that hope is foolish or that faith has no value. But your special person has discovered something those voices cannot understand. A heart anchored in God's promises possesses a peace that circumstances cannot steal. Even when storms continue around them, there is a quiet confidence within them because they know they are not walking alone. The presence of God has become more precious than the certainty they once desperately sought. As the weeks continue, they notice another unexpected change. They no longer define success by achievements alone. Instead, they measure their life by faithfulness, integrity, compassion, and love. They understand that the greatest victories often happen where no one else is watching. Choosing honesty when deception would be easier. Choosing forgiveness when resentment feels justified. Choosing humility when pride demands attention. These hidden victories are shaping a character that will remain long after earthly accomplishments have faded. They now understand that becoming more like Christ is a greater miracle than receiving everything they once asked for. Don't skip this final moment, because it prepares the way for the closing chapter of this story. Every lesson, every prayer, every season of waiting has been drawing your special person closer to the heart of God. They no longer fear the future as they once did because they have learned that the safest place is not a life without uncertainty, it is a life surrendered to God's loving care. Whatever tomorrow holds, they know His grace will be sufficient. Whatever doors open or close, His faithfulness will remain unchanged. And with that assurance, they step forward into the next chapter, not with fear, but with quiet confidence, unwavering hope, and a heart that has finally learned to trust the author of every beautiful beginning and every faithful ending. My beloved child, listen carefully, because this chapter reaches the deepest place in the heart. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because what you are about to hear is not about chasing extraordinary moments but about recognizing God's faithfulness in the ordinary moments that quietly shape a life. Your special person has come to understand that every season, whether joyful or painful, has carried a purpose. Looking back, they no longer see only unanswered questions. They see God's hand guiding them through moments they once believed would break them. The valleys that seemed endless became places where their faith took root. The mountains they feared climbing became places where they discovered strength they never knew they possessed. What once appeared to be the end of their story was quietly becoming the beginning of something far greater than they could have imagined. There are evenings now when they simply sit in silence, grateful for the peace that has slowly replaced the constant noise inside their mind. Not every question has been answered, and not every dream has unfolded exactly as they expected. Yet something much more valuable has taken place. Their heart has learned to rest. They have stopped carrying burdens that were never theirs to carry. They have discovered that surrender is not weakness but one of the greatest expressions of faith. The more they release their fears into God's hands, the lighter their spirit becomes. It is a freedom they searched for in countless places but only found when they chose to trust Him completely. Listen carefully, because another beautiful lesson is unfolding. They have realized that God's greatest miracles are often hidden within simple acts of obedience. Choosing kindness when others respond with anger. Speaking words of hope when negativity surrounds them. Offering forgiveness when pride whispers to hold on to resentment. Remaining faithful when no one else notices their efforts. These moments may appear small to the world, but in God's kingdom they carry eternal significance. Every quiet act of love becomes another stone laid upon the foundation of a life built on faith rather than fear. As the days continue, they begin noticing how God has been answering prayers in ways they never expected. Sometimes the answer was not changing the situation but giving them the strength to endure it. Sometimes the answer was not opening the door they wanted but leading them toward a better path they had never considered. Sometimes the answer came through the encouragement of a friend, the wisdom found in Scripture, or the quiet peace that settled over them during prayer. They now understand that God's answers are not always immediate, but they are always shaped by perfect wisdom and perfect love. This changes everything because they no longer measure God's faithfulness by how quickly circumstances change. They measure it by His constant presence through every season. Stay till the end, because the next lesson became one of the most life-changing discoveries they have ever made. They realized they had spent years asking God to remove every storm, while God was using those very storms to strengthen their faith. Like a tree whose roots grow deeper through strong winds, their character had become stronger because of every trial they faced. If life had always been easy, they would never have learned to depend so completely on God's grace. They would never have experienced the peace that comes only after choosing trust in the middle of uncertainty. Every difficult chapter became evidence that God had never left them, even when they could not immediately see His purpose. My beloved child, there is another truth your special person now carries wherever they go. They understand that love is not measured by grand promises alone but by consistent faithfulness. It is found in daily choices to be patient, compassionate, honest, and humble. It is reflected in a gentle spirit that seeks peace instead of conflict. It grows stronger through service rather than selfishness. They have learned that becoming the right person is far more important than trying to control every outcome. That lesson has transformed every relationship in their life, beginning with their relationship with God. As another season begins, they no longer fear what lies beyond the horizon. Their confidence does not come from having every answer but from knowing the one who holds every tomorrow. They rise each morning with gratitude instead of anxiety. They end each day with thanksgiving instead of regret. Even when unexpected challenges appear, they remember how faithfully God has carried them through every previous trial. That memory becomes the fuel for today's courage and tomorrow's hope. It reminds them that the same God who was faithful yesterday will remain faithful forever. Don't skip this final moment, because the journey is moving toward its most meaningful conclusion. Every prayer, every tear, every season of waiting, every lesson in patience, and every quiet act of obedience has been preparing your special person for a life marked by deeper faith rather than perfect certainty. They have discovered that the greatest miracle was never simply the hope of changed circumstances. The greatest miracle has been the transformation of their own heart into one that reflects God's love more clearly each day. And as they continue walking forward, they carry an unshakable confidence that no matter what tomorrow brings, God's mercy will meet them there, His grace will sustain them there, and His unfailing love will never leave them. That is the miracle they now hold close, and it is a hope that continues shining through every chapter still to come. My beloved child, listen carefully, because this chapter begins where many stories would normally end. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the greatest miracle is often revealed only after a heart has learned complete surrender. Your special person has finally reached the place where they no longer need every question answered before taking the next faithful step. They have discovered that God's peace does not depend upon perfect circumstances. It flows quietly into the heart that chooses to trust Him even when the road ahead disappears into uncertainty. This lesson did not arrive overnight. It was written through countless prayers, silent tears, unexpected disappointments, and moments when hope seemed almost impossible to hold on to. Yet God remained faithful through every one of those moments, gently shaping a heart that had once been overwhelmed by fear into one that now rests in His promises. There are mornings when your special person opens their window before the sun has fully risen. The world is still quiet. The air feels calm. In those peaceful moments, they no longer begin the day with anxiety about everything they cannot control. Instead, they thank God for another opportunity to grow, another opportunity to forgive, another opportunity to serve, and another opportunity to walk in faith. They have realized that every sunrise is a reminder that God's mercy is new every morning. Yesterday's failures no longer define today's purpose. Every new day carries fresh grace, fresh strength, and another invitation to trust the one who has never stopped watching over them. Listen carefully, because something beautiful is unfolding beneath the surface. Your special person has begun encouraging people who are struggling with the very fears they once carried themselves. They speak gently to those who have lost hope. They remind weary hearts that no prayer offered sincerely is ever wasted. They share how God's love remained constant even when life felt uncertain. Without realizing it, they have become the answer to prayers spoken by people around them. Their kindness brings comfort. Their patience brings peace. Their testimony brings hope. The very pain they once begged God to remove has become the source of wisdom that now strengthens someone else's faith. As they continue growing, they begin understanding another profound truth. God's greatest blessings are often entrusted to those whose hearts have first been shaped by humility. Pride demands immediate results, but humility learns to wait. Fear demands guarantees, but faith continues walking without seeing the entire path. Impatience focuses on what has not yet happened, but gratitude rejoices in what God is already doing today. This changes everything because they no longer measure God's goodness by visible success alone. They measure it by the quiet transformation taking place inside their own heart each day. Stay till the end, because another lesson begins revealing itself. They realize that God's timing has protected them far more often than they ever recognized. There were opportunities they desperately wanted that would have taken them away from the very growth they now treasure. There were relationships, ambitions, and plans that seemed perfect at the time but would not have produced lasting peace. Looking back, they can now say with genuine gratitude that God sometimes says, "Not yet," or "Not this way," because His wisdom reaches far beyond our limited understanding. What once looked like disappointment has become evidence of divine protection. My beloved child, remember this truth whenever your own heart grows weary. Waiting is never meaningless when it is placed in God's hands. Every season of patience produces endurance. Every act of obedience strengthens character. Every quiet prayer offered in faith draws you closer to the heart of God. Even when no visible change seems to be happening, heaven is never inactive. God continues working in ways that human eyes cannot fully understand. Just as roots grow unseen beneath the earth before the tree bears fruit, His work often begins in hidden places long before it becomes visible to the world. One evening, while reflecting on everything they had experienced, your special person whispered a prayer unlike any they had spoken before. They no longer asked God to simply change their circumstances. Instead, they prayed, "Lord, make my heart reflect yours. Teach me to love as you love, to forgive as you forgive, and to trust you even when I cannot understand your plan." That simple prayer became the beginning of an even deeper transformation. Peace settled where worry had once lived. Gratitude replaced constant striving. Joy quietly returned to places that had once been filled with fear. Don't skip this final thought, because it prepares the way for the final chapters of this journey. Your special person has discovered that the greatest miracle God prepared was never merely about changing the direction of their life. It was about changing the direction of their heart. A heart once ruled by uncertainty now rests in faith. A heart once burdened by regret now walks in forgiveness. A heart once searching desperately for answers now finds peace in God's presence. And as they continue moving forward one faithful step at a time, they know with quiet confidence that no matter what tomorrow brings, God will continue guiding every step, strengthening every weakness, redeeming every difficult chapter, and filling every new season with the grace needed for the journey ahead. That confidence has become their miracle, and it is a gift that no circumstance can ever take away. My beloved child, listen carefully, because this chapter carries a truth that many people discover only after years of searching. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the greatest work God performs is often the one that no human eye can immediately recognize. Your special person has begun to understand that every chapter of their life has been connected by a purpose far greater than coincidence. The moments that once appeared random now seem woven together with remarkable care. Every delay taught endurance. Every disappointment revealed hidden strength. Every season of waiting drew them closer to God's heart than they had ever been before. Looking back, they can finally see that the path was never meaningless. Even when they felt lost, God was gently leading them one faithful step at a time. There are quiet mornings when they sit with an open Bible and a simple prayer, asking for nothing more than wisdom to honor God with the life they have been given. They no longer approach prayer as a list of demands. Instead, they approach it as a conversation with the one who knows them completely. In those peaceful moments, they feel a calm that words can barely describe. The fears that once dominated every thought slowly fade into the background. Their confidence no longer depends on knowing what tomorrow will bring. It depends on knowing that God's character never changes. That single truth has become the anchor that holds them steady through every storm. Listen carefully, because another remarkable lesson is unfolding before them. They have realized that true faith is revealed during ordinary days far more often than extraordinary moments. It is choosing kindness when no one notices. It is speaking with patience when frustration feels easier. It is remaining honest when compromise appears more convenient. It is continuing to pray when answers seem delayed. Every one of those decisions becomes another quiet victory that shapes the person they are becoming. They understand now that character is built one faithful choice at a time, and those unseen choices often become the strongest testimony of all. As the weeks continue, they begin recognizing how many people around them are carrying silent burdens. Some are hiding grief behind polite smiles. Others are fighting battles no one else can see. Instead of rushing past those people, your special person begins slowing down. They offer encouragement. They listen without judgment. They pray with those who feel alone. They become a source of comfort simply because they have learned what it feels like to need comfort themselves. God uses their past pain to create compassion that reaches hearts they never expected to touch. What once felt like their greatest weakness becomes one of the greatest ways they reflect His love. Stay till the end, because this changes everything. One evening, while reflecting on the journey behind them, they suddenly realized that the miracle they had prayed for had been unfolding all along. It was not a single dramatic event. It was the gradual transformation of a fearful heart into one filled with peace. It was learning to forgive without expecting anything in return. It was discovering joy in simple moments. It was trusting God even when every detail remained uncertain. They smiled through tears as they recognized that heaven had been answering prayers in ways they had never thought to ask. Sometimes God's greatest gifts arrive so gently that we only recognize them when we stop and look back. My beloved child, never believe that your faithful steps are unnoticed. Every sincere prayer spoken in private is heard by God. Every act of mercy offered without recognition matters. Every decision to choose hope instead of despair leaves a lasting mark upon your soul. The world often celebrates visible success, but God delights in faithful hearts that continue walking with Him day after day. Your special person now understands that true victory is not measured by applause, achievements, or possessions. It is measured by becoming more loving, more patient, more humble, and more faithful than they were yesterday. The road ahead may still include moments of uncertainty, but fear no longer controls their future. They have learned that no challenge is greater than God's faithfulness. No disappointment can erase His promises. No delay can prevent His purposes from unfolding in the right season. They no longer feel pressured to force open every door because they trust that God knows exactly which doors should open and exactly when. That trust has become a source of deep and lasting peace that nothing in the world can replace. Don't skip this final moment, because another beautiful chapter is waiting just beyond the horizon. Your special person is no longer chasing miracles as though they were distant dreams. They have discovered that living each day with faith, gratitude, compassion, and obedience is itself a miracle of God's grace. Their heart has been renewed. Their hope has been restored. Their faith has been strengthened. And as they continue walking forward with quiet confidence, they know that whatever tomorrow holds, God's presence will go before them, His wisdom will guide them, His mercy will sustain them, and His love will remain the unchanging foundation beneath every step of the journey. The story continues, but now it is written with a heart that has learned to trust the author above all else. My beloved child, listen carefully, because this is the final chapter of our journey together. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the message you are about to hear is the reason every previous chapter had to unfold exactly as it did. Through every season of waiting, every silent prayer, every tear that fell when no one else was watching, and every moment you wondered whether God was still listening, one truth remained unchanged. God never left your side. Even when the path became difficult to understand, His hand was quietly guiding every step. Even when your heart grew weary, His love continued surrounding you. Even when you believed nothing was changing, heaven was still at work in ways beyond human understanding. Your special person now looks back on the journey with completely different eyes. The fear that once ruled their decisions has become faith. The uncertainty that once filled their thoughts has become peace. The wounds that once caused them to hide have become reminders of God's healing grace. They finally understand that miracles are not always loud or immediate. Sometimes the greatest miracle is a heart that learns to forgive instead of holding resentment. Sometimes the greatest miracle is finding peace in the middle of unanswered questions. Sometimes the greatest miracle is discovering that God's presence was enough to carry them through every storm. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. They have realized that the greatest blessing God prepared was never simply about reaching a destination. It was about becoming the person He created them to be. Every delay developed patience. Every disappointment deepened compassion. Every closed door strengthened trust. Every difficult season refined their character until they became someone who could love with humility, serve with kindness, forgive with sincerity, and walk by faith rather than fear. Looking back, they no longer wish to erase those difficult chapters because they now understand that those very chapters became the foundation of their greatest spiritual growth. As another sunrise begins, they no longer wake with anxiety about tomorrow. Instead, they begin each day with gratitude. They thank God for His mercy that is new every morning. They thank Him for the wisdom gained through every trial. They thank Him for the strength that carried them when they believed they had none left. They thank Him for teaching them that faith is not about controlling the future but trusting the One who already holds it. Their heart has become steady because it is anchored not in changing circumstances but in God's unchanging love. My beloved child, if there is one lesson to carry with you after this story ends, let it be this: never mistake silence for absence. There are seasons when God works most deeply beneath the surface, just as roots grow unseen before a tree bears fruit. Do not lose heart if you cannot yet see every answer. Continue praying with sincerity. Continue living with integrity. Continue choosing forgiveness over bitterness, compassion over judgment, and hope over despair. Every faithful step matters. Every act of kindness matters. Every quiet prayer matters. None of it is ever wasted in God's hands. Stay till the end, because the final truth is the most beautiful of all. Whatever tomorrow brings, you do not walk into it alone. God's love goes before you. His wisdom walks beside you. His grace strengthens you. His peace surrounds you. Whether the road ahead brings restored relationships, unexpected opportunities, or entirely new beginnings, you can move forward with confidence because your hope is rooted in the one who never changes. The future is not something to fear when your heart rests in His care. So let this story end where every journey of faith truly begins, with trust. Trust that God's timing is wiser than human timing. Trust that His plans are greater than our understanding. Trust that every season has a purpose, even when we cannot yet see it. Continue becoming the person God is shaping you to be, and let your life reflect His love wherever you go. The greatest miracle is not simply that circumstances may change. The greatest miracle is that a heart surrendered to God can be transformed into one filled with faith, peace, courage, and hope. Thank you, my beloved child, for staying until the very end. If these words have encouraged your heart, carry them with you beyond this moment. Let them remind you that no prayer offered in faith is ever unheard, no act of love is ever forgotten, and no season of growth is ever meaningless. Keep your eyes on God, your heart open to His guidance, and your spirit anchored in His promises. The story may be ending here, but your journey of faith is only beginning. Walk forward with confidence, live with compassion, love with humility, and trust God one day at a time. And may His peace guard your heart, His wisdom direct your steps, and His unfailing love remain with you through every chapter still to come. Amen.